We're going to go ahead and get started. Testing. Can everybody hear me okay? No. Let's see. Try it now. Can everybody hear me okay now? We're good now? A little bit more? Okay. Good evening. Go ahead and start this. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to go call the meeting to order. Today is March 2nd. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Trumpman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson Sardella.
Here.
Commissioner Bilt.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Here. Commissioner Tudor.
Here.
Can we all stand for the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, I start off with a bit of sad news. I ask that we bow our heads for a moment of silence for former Mayor and Commissioner James Reeder, or Jim Reeder as we know him, who passed away Sunday morning, April 23rd. Mayor Reeder served in both the Coast Guard and Navy, so we'll have a hoorah for that. Memorial service will be held Miami Shores Community Church on Friday, May 10th at 11 a.m., and then he'll be back with his family to have the burial service not in the area. We could all bow our heads and then do that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we can do that.
It's actually, I believe, May 5th. Friday?
It's May 5th. It's the Miami Shores Community Church at 11 a.m. That's this Friday. We have two presentations this evening. We're going to start off with the presentation. As many of you may know, this is our employee health insurance time that we do open enrollment and select our insurance for our employees. So we're going to have a presentation. And unfortunately, I don't know who the name for me, please.
Ray.
Thank you so much. I apologize. It's not on the agenda. Thank you. Come on up. Please come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, citizens. Thank you for your time. I'm going to briefly give you a review of the renewal process that we went through for the benefits here at the Village, what the staff recommendations are, and then answer any questions that you have. I know it's health is the biggest item, but start with the easier items. We do have life insurance. The Village provides all employees with a $15,000 life insurance policy. There was no change in the rates for that, and staff would ask that we renew as is. Two other benefits that are available is a dental plan and a vision plan, which the Village employees pay for if they choose to participate in. Both those items also had no rate increase, so again, the staff would ask that you could approve renewing those as they were. The health plan, a little longer detail, but briefly, we're currently insured with Aetna. We offer two plans to the employees. One we identify as the low plan. It's got a $2,000 deductible. The other we identify as the high plan. It has a $1,000 deductible. The employees can buy up if they choose to take advantage of the other plan. Aetna is doing away with both plan designs. So what had a $2,000 deductible, they're mapping us over to a $3,000 deductible plan. And the employees who were in the $1,000 deductible will now have a $1,500. In addition to lowering the benefits, they also issued an increase in premium of 10.07%. So the cost went up, the benefits went down. We went to market to see what we could find that was competitive in meeting with Krishnan and Marlon, reviewing the benefits that were available to us. We found AvMed as a viable option. They asked if we would meet with the police department and some of the employees who may have had concerns about transitioning to a new health plan, change of doctors, formularies, things of that nature. So we met with them. We went over a majority of the benefits line by line, detail by detail. So their endorsement was that they found those were benefits that were good for them and their families and such. And as opposed to offering two plans, we were asking for your recommendation to offer one plan that has a $1,500 deductible. The AvMed proposal would provide an opportunity to improve the benefits from where Aetna is trying to take us to. The employees' payroll deductions could remain the same, and the city would have a savings of about $32,000 compared to the Aetna renewal, which will net out, or I should say the total premium is $32,000. It'll come out to about a 12.7% decrease over what the village currently pays for health plan benefits. The employees would have still a quality health plan, as opposed to, they were really transitioning to something not quite as good as what you've provided previously. And their payroll would stay the same, your costs would go down, their quality of benefits would be adhered to. And staff would ask if you could endorse that as well. With that, I'll answer any questions you folks have.
Question that I have, and I'm assuming since it's gone through the staff, about doctors and plan, there's no issues there?
Yeah, what we did a couple weeks ago when we were making the proposal is we provided everybody with the website to look for their doctors, and there's a tremendous overlap in the networks. I mean, AvMed has been in this marketplace for, I want to say, 50 years. They've got volumes of municipalities, the Miami-Dade County school system, lots of, they're a very prominent carrier. They're NCQA accredited. They're an excellent health plan. We just happen to fall into a sweet spot right here. I've been giving people bad news for 5 years on health plans, and every now and then it works out, and this is the opportunity.
Anybody else?
The employees can still have an HSA account, can't they?
They don't have HSAs now. To have an HSA, you have to have a qualified high-deductible health plan, and we don't have what's called a qualified high-deductible health plan. We have a high deductible, but our plans have co-pays. On an HSA account, a health savings account, you have to have a health plan that has no co-pays till you meet the deductible, where employees actually pay the contracted rates, and that's not the structure that we're under currently.
Any other questions?
No, I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We follow with a presentation by Interim Chief Walschlager.
Good evening, everybody. I know
I'm
there's
sorry,
a-
Chief, once again.
Sorry. Good evening, everybody. What I did tonight was I kept it very short and to the point, because I know that the commission has a lot of stuff to cover tonight as far as CAFR and with the manager. So I just wanted to give you guys a glimpse of what we've been working on this past month. As far as hiring efforts, we did hold oral boards 2 weeks ago. Two individuals made it through that process. So we started background initiations on them, and they're flowing through the process. We're getting all of our officers recertified out at the firearms range. That's coming this week. April was a little bit of a tough month for us as far as speeding violations, because for 3 weeks out of the month of April, all the radars had to go and be recalibrated, which they have to do every 6 months. So that definitely put a hamper on that. 9 of our officers were up for recertification, which they have to be every 4 years. We have to go through a 40-hour course, and then they come back out, good to go for another 4 years. So that's just a lot of very time-consuming efforts that has taken up the bulk of this. And like I said, that was really the highlights of what we've been doing, and I want to keep it short and to the point.
Are any questions for the Chief?
Did we have some sort of training going on last week? Because I remember seeing in the church parking lot.
That was actually a Miami-Dade County warrant sweep. Now, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll use our lot or the church lot more as a staging area, and they'll either go over the railroad tracks into the county jurisdiction or over the bridge into the county jurisdiction. They will let us know if they're doing something in our area coming for warrants, but usually is that they will not advise us.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Are there any deletions or withdrawals from the agenda?
Not necessarily in addition, but I'd like the village attorney to report on the memo he provided to us last month.
Can you do that
Part of
during
his
the...
report.
Yeah, that's part of the report? Okay, thank you. Okay. Public comments. Open the floor for public comments. Once again, 3 minutes. Please forgive me, we don't have the timer in front of me today, so if I turn around, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to glance at the timer. Are there any public comments? Please don't forget to sign in if you do public comments, to make it easier on our interim clerk who's still learning your names. Thank you so much. It's not on?
1030 Northeast 121st Street. I basically gave everybody I had the opportunity this past weekend to interview the 3 finalists, and if anybody wants to see those, I was trying to get it. It's hard to get it dictated, to get word for word, because that's what I do with my interviews. Couldn't get it off in enough time. I'm hoping that the commissioners will keep their goal tonight of selecting the city manager. And I also hope that each commissioner will explain thoroughly on why they picked that particular candidate. I think it's very important that we do that, okay? Again, I already gave my view that I think commission should pick our present assistant city manager, because I think he's done a lot, especially in since he's been here 4 or 5 weeks, and the amount of money that he has found that was not missing, but was put in the drawer and stuff like that, that we need to have this, just basically, I think we should choose him. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, please don't forget to sign in. Thank you.
Susan Weiss, 960 Northeast 116th Street. I'm here on behalf of our Public Advisory Art Board. I want to let everybody know or remind you all that the PAM Museum, who installed all this art that we have around the village, many of you have probably seen it or know about it. We have some paintings installed around the village. On Saturday, all residents of Biscayne Park are invited to board a bus provided by the museum for a ride down to the museum for several hours, where they will explain to us about the paintings we have. They'll give us a tour of the museum. It sounds like a great deal. I mean, it's a good deal because you get a ride downtown, which means you don't have to drive, you don't have to pay for parking. And it's a great place. If you've never been there, it's a nice opportunity. You'll be there for several hours. The bus leaves the rec center at 11:30 in the morning, and they will leave the museum about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's about 3 hours at the museum. You are asked to bring your ID card, because that will give you free admission. Once they see you're a resident of Biscayne Park, you'll get free admission, because we're this community where they have installed the art. You are asked to contact the chairman of our advisory board, send her an email indicating that you're going to be attending, so we have a count. And the email is included in the mailing that went out. If you don't have the email, then get the village clerk. But that's this Saturday, a trip downtown for 3 hours and a visit to the museum. Thank you.
Thank you. And is it on the website? It's on the website as well for those of you who want to. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Rosemary Weiss, 1010 Northeast 116th Street. I will. I ask you again to think carefully as you decide on who will be our village manager. I would like to point out that we have a new village clerk, a new finance manager, and a relatively new PW manager and no recreation manager. I believe we do not need to bring on another new person to be the village manager, and for that person to go through months of familiarization with the character and nuances of this unique community. We already have an interim manager in place who is knowledgeable and familiar with the specifics of all departments within the village, and he gives us stability. He served us before as assistant manager in a previous administration and stepped in now when we had an urgent need for an interim manager. He is taking care of business, correcting things that were overlooked or ignored. He has the capability and the experience. He's been doing the job for at least a year and a half. He knows the village. He knows its needs and problems. He knows us, we know him, and how he works. At least I do. He is here because he wants to be here. He likes it here. And he likes and respects us. And we like and respect him. He wants to see the village thrive, and to quote Fred Jonas, to be all that we can be. He is here now, doing the job, now. I respectfully ask you to select Christian Manners to be village manager, and let him continue doing an outstanding job, thereby maintaining continuity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeannie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. Well, I can't say it much better than Rosemary, so ditto what she said, except I want to add and remind everyone there's a line in the job posting that says, individuals with other particularly strong credentials will also be considered. To me, the fact that Christian knows us, has the experience, has the drive and the energy and the determination to put us back on track from the kind of inertia we've been in for a year, that to me is overriding to anything else. That sometimes it's the intangibles that are more important than the specifics. So I'm hoping that we will hear tonight that that's who you're choosing for our next city manager.
Hello, Judy Hamelberg, 1015 Northeast 116th Street. I was at the meet and greet, and I think looking at the credentials, there's by far one person whose credentials are more outstanding than the other. That is the guy from West Palm Beach.
Mark Cutney.
Cutney. God, I'm having a brain fart. My mother's dementia is catching on. I think when we sat and talked to him, my opinion changed drastically, because we had two concerns, and our concerns that we addressed with him were his travel, which he addressed. He said he'd worked in Hallandale before, and that our salary for a village manager was much lower than the other jobs he'd apply for, and he just laughed. And we basically said, would you stay if you got a better offer? And he said, well, that seems to be everybody's question. So to me, the fact that he could come for 3 months or 6 months or a year and then leave us high and dry means that although he has credentials, I don't want to put my vote there. I talked to Ray. I'd never met him before. He seems very nice, but I've lived here 20 years, and if there's somebody who's lived here as long or longer than me and has not shown up to these meetings, and I don't know their face and I don't know who they are, I don't understand how they can try and get in our government with so much years here. I also don't think that being a village attorney makes you qualified to be the village manager. If I were sitting in your shoes, my vote would go with Mr. Manners, without question. When we had our committee active for code review, he came and he joined us. He was a mediator during some of it. He sat and observed during rest of it. It was not a happy administration, and I think it was very stressful for him, but he was there for us as residents. When the shit hit the fan and we needed somebody to step in, he did it with grace and with dignity, and he's still here with grace and dignity, even though we're considering other people for the job he's been doing. And I think he's been outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I sent each of you a message and made my thoughts very clear. For those that weren't privy to that, I was 100% behind Christian as our next village manager.
Thank you, Linda.
Second, I'm signing in.
We won't start the clock, don't worry.
Hi, Andrew Olis, 11935 Northeast 5th Avenue. Short and sweet. I don't know who the other candidates were. It didn't matter. That's the guy. That's it.
Thank you.
Fred Jonas, 918 119th. Rosemary, it's for the best we can be. Be all that you can be is the Army's recruiting slogan. I had nothing to do with it.
Any further public comments? Okay, we'll close public comments. We have information and updates. We have monthly financials. There is going to be one switch. We're going to do the CAFR first and then the monthly financials first. So would you like to come up, sir? Introduce yourself to everyone, and I'm sure this is the long-awaited CAFR, so.
Good afternoon. My name is Pablo Llerena. I'm from GLC and Company, and here to present the draft of the CAFR for the year ended September 30, 2015. The reason that it is a draft, we're still waiting for the bank to give us a waiver letter for the non-compliance with the loan. That's all. None of the numbers in the financial statements are going to change of the draft that you have. No disclosures or anything is going to change. I'm just waiting for that letter. To begin with, basically...
I'm sorry, just give me one moment. I just want to make sure everybody in the audience is on the same page, just as a review. This is the 2014 CAFR 1415, the one that's been overdue. It's finally been finished except for a few small changes, so the decision was to go ahead and present it managers to make sure that we're all on the same page where we are financially as we're moving into budget season. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Basically, the village will get a clean opinion of the financial statement from the auditor for the year ending September 30, 2015. The most significant changes in your financial statement for this year, there's two things that are basically extremely important. Number one, for the first time, you're going to have a liability in your books for the pension. That is something that is happened in 2015 for the first time. Even though you're a member of the Florida retirement system, your portion of the total liability of the Florida retirement system belongs to you. It will be reflected in your financial statement for the first time. In prior years, that number was reflected in the note. That number is basically $1,170,000. This amount that is owed to the employees for their retirement in the future. In addition to that, is another item that is significant is because of the construction of the log cabin. There's a loan of $350,000 that is reflected in your financial statement for the first time on the government-wide financial statement. During the year, the log cabin was it's the process of construction, and the log cabin and the city hall is finished. Basically, as a result, there was $1 million that came from the state, which we already finished the single audit. Each of the single audit for the state, which with a clean opinion. The cost of the cabin reflected in your financial statement for the year 2015 is $1,531,000. Basically, there's a deficiency of $531,000 between the money that came from the state and the cost for the year. That cost was basically financed with a loan of $350,000 from the bank, and the difference it was basically advances from the general fund, most of it. As part of the audit, we had to do examine your internal control and your compliance with laws and regulation. The internal control report, we have a significant deficiency, which is explained on page 88. Well,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the page number, please?
Pardon?
Can you repeat the page number, please?
Okay, it might be the page might be different because we added some pages, but basically I'll go over what caused the material witness on the issue. During the audit, there were significant issues with your basically your books and the way they were set up. One of the things is your account receivable balance was not properly reflected at the end of the year, and that basically because they failed to record taxes, utility revenue, grant revenue, and other type of revenue. Okay, the costs and the accumulated depreciation of the fixed assets were not recorded correctly in your books. There were misclassification of expenses on the construction in progress.
Pardon me, just a second, Pablo. It's page 84.
Page 84, correct, that's what I found. Everybody, just so that the audience knows as well, those of you who have printed out this, it's page 84. Can we pull that up?
Most of the accrual at the end of the year were not made. Some of the transactions were not recorded in the proper fund. Most of the subsidiary layers, which is basically the detail of your accounts receivable, your accounts payables, and your fixed asset, were not in agreement with your books. So as a result, those were the findings of the audit. We, instead of having 6 or 7 different findings, we decided to group everything into one finding, which basically is just make it easy to understand, is most concise. In addition to the auditing the numbers in compliance, the Auditor General of the State of Florida required us to do a financial condition assessment, which is basically looking at the condition of the village. Last year, the financial condition assessment was inconclusive. This year, the financial conditions assessment is unfavorable. The major reason for that is the addition to the loan, the addition to the liability of the pension plan, and for years your millage rate has been high at 9.7, in which none of those factors help you with your financial condition assessment. So at the present time, you have an unfavorable financial condition assessment. It has been fluctuating like that for the past 2 or 3 years. It goes to inconclusive or unfavorable, but more or less, your fund balance in the general fund is more or less the same as it was in the previous year. However, you have a deficiency in the capital project fund is approximately $106,000 as part of the construction of the log cabin and the city hall, which had to be funded probably from the general fund.
Could you repeat that figure, please?
$106,159. And the last item I have to cover is basically one of the requirements of the profession that I have to mention, 13 things and discuss it with management. And number one is my responsibility as an auditor and the responsibility of management on the professional standards. My responsibility is to issue an opinion on the financial statement. Management is responsible for the financial statement, and you as elected officials are responsible for overseeing the management is doing the work. During the year, there were 3 new GASB standards that were adopted, which is basically new things in the profession. Like I mentioned before, the pension plan was the most significant one, which basically added $1 million of liabilities to the village. There were certain incorrect misstatements that we corrected during the audit process. We had no disagreement with management during the audit process. And there were difficulties encountered during the audit process. It took us almost 2 years to finish. So at the present time, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
I'll go ahead and start. On your findings in your letter to management on page 84, You list a significant amount of issues with what I'll call processes. There's 7 of them. Based upon your opinion of where we are we moving from many of these things? I know we have somebody new here who will address some of the CAFR deficiencies. From what you're seeing now, are you seeing us moving in the right direction?
By the fact that you hire a financial director that have extremely experience and have been doing this for a long time, there's a tremendous step moving in on the right direction. Before there was no one with that a strong experience on governmental accounting and the finance department. And I think you have made a right decision with the person that you hire.
And the second question I have has to do with the reserve or the unassigned surplus. It's showing, the unassigned surplus is showing $730,000, which looks like we went up quite a lot. My
Right.
question is, what is against that? Is there?
But the thing is, if
Right.
you look, there's 2 deficiencies that had to be basically on the capital improvement fund and the forfeiture fund, that money had to come probably
Is that 168 total? Did I get that correct, those numbers?
106 and $8,000, 100 and $114,000. So at the end, your fund balance, if basically you use those funds to replace, will be $614,000, which is on page 16.
Okay, and then we had $100,000 from selling of the trucks, which may account for some of that.
Basically, and the
Okay, so the garbage trucks would be the 100,000, and then we had 114 we have to pay back, so that's the
Right.
wash. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. So the picture that you're painting for us with this report is a snapshot of September 2015.
15, definitely.
The adding of the GASB for the liability for the GASB pension. So that's something, an exposure that the village has, even though we fund it through the FRS.
No, okay.
And even though all the payments are current into the pension system.
What happened with the pension is basically, right now, is basically 2 reports. One for the funding that had no change, there's not going to change. It will be the same way it was before. That is not going to change. What happened is somebody had the idea that it will be a good idea to put the total liability on the financial statement of the municipalities and the city. So there's an additional report for funding, but it's an accounting function, which is the number that you're seeing. The way you'll be funding your pension had no change. It will not change. It'll still be the same way that it was done before.
My question really goes to, because it impacts on our bottom line, on our net value. It impacts on our net worth.
But that will be on the government-wide financial statement, which just cover everything. On your fund balance, those numbers are not reflected. Which is fund balance is the what you use to run your city on a day-to-day basis.
Right, but it impacts on our balance statement. And what I'm leading to is, I haven't seen what other cities are doing about this liability, but do we need to start building up a reserve to counterbalance the negative?
Bea, would you like to answer that one? But basically, it has been business as usual for everybody. They just paying the same contribution that I've been doing, because if something is going to happen maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, that number is going to change. Every year you're going to have a different number. It's based on a actuarial calculation that take into consideration interest, cost of living increases, a lot of things. So that's a moving target, okay?
Right.
The thing that is constant is the way you're funding your plan, which is basically will be given by the state, and that number has not changed. It will be done the same way that it was done before.
Okay, so let's also talk about the unrestricted reserve balance, the unrestricted fund balance, which, understanding that there's an offset to the capital fund because the projects at that time in September 15 had not been completed yet, and also all of the revenue source, all of the funding source for the project, particularly the log cabin, I don't think was yet in our pockets in September 2015. So what you're showing as $106,000 deficit, is it possible that some of that funding is going to come in after September 15th?
No. Basically, there's no receivables, no more money coming in. There's basically, there's $1 million of revenue that came in, and that's, you spent in the year 2015, $1,531,000, okay?
So there's 350 from the loan proceeds.
350 from the loan proceeds, there's some transfers that came from the general fund for $74,000, and at the end of that, there's still $106,000 in deficit in that fund that had to be funded from somewhere. There's no other source of revenue for the capital, for this, for the log cabin, so that more likely will be coming from the general fund.
Plus the 8,000 for the police, correct?
Pardon?
Plus another 8,000 for the police.
Right. Okay.
As of September 15.
As of September 30, 2015.
Okay. Okay. When do you anticipate commencing the 15-16 audit? Because that'll see us through the end of all of the construction projects.
Okay.
1 month for those of you who are wondering what was said.
Commencing within a month? And it'll be it'll be standardized. You don't expect to have all the same hurdles.
No, I don't expect to have any problems for 2016. Believe me, I don't anticipate any problems. The thing is, I had to know ahead of time, at least 2 or 3 weeks, because I had to plan the staffing for this engagement. So but I'd anticipate a smooth audit going forward.
So, assuming that there are no setbacks, when do you think we will be having this same report for September 2016?
Probably a month after I start doing the work and everything. A month and a half.
A month and a half, okay. So if we say by the July meeting?
Probably.
Possible?
August.
August, okay. It would be nice to have all of that information before we formalize and finalize the budget.
There is one thing right now that should be, and I know you're working on the condition of the book, but you're starting to work on that, so I'm sure it's going to find a lot of things. It will take time to correct. Sorry about that.
I just want to, anybody else? Well, okay. I just want to thank you for working so hard to get us moving so quickly, and Diana Gonzalez, I don't know if she's here today, to getting this finally done, and as well as the interim manager, who I know has been working very hard to make sure this is done. When will this be given to the state, so we're done?
Pardon?
When will this actually be sent off to the state, probably, and finished?
We're waiting for the bank, Christian, please.
We're waiting for the bank waiver letter to come through, and the bank has had it for about 2 weeks, and we've called them daily, if not multiple times, particularly this week, to try and get it out of them. And they don't see a problem with it. Our contact at the bank says he doesn't see a problem with it. It's just getting it through their legal department and their credit department to sign off on it.
Okay.
And so as soon as that's done, I think we're ready to really push the button and send it to the state.
Okay, thank you. So we have till June 30th, but we don't want to use that.
No,
Thank you very much.
please. As soon as they have it, it will a day or two to put the report together and send it. That's it. When I put it together, they bind the report and everything. So
I'm sure you'll be contacted regularly. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Beatrice, go ahead. Would you like to introduce again, just to make sure?
Would love to introduce B. Galliano. She's our new finance director, and she's been here for a few weeks now and is doing a phenomenal job. So please give her a warm welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As Christian just said, it's been about a month since I last saw you, and I know you're eagerly awaiting financial statements, current numbers, but you just heard from Pablo what are the status of our 2015 CAFR, and in order for me to provide you with the financial transparency that you're looking for, I needed a clean starting point. and that comes with the closing of this audit. I'm currently in the process of reviewing the 2016 fiscal year and transaction by transaction in hopes that when I give him my books a month from today, there will be no findings, no errors, no journal entries. All of my T's have been crossed, my I's have been dotted, and that will help us move forward with actually a couple of different things. In the past month, here's what we've accomplished. We've brought all of our accounts payable current. There were a lot of people who hadn't been paid in a while. We brought that all current. We've deposited a lot of money. We've approximately $239,000 in 1 month has gone into our bank accounts. The bank accounts are in good shape. I reviewed the loan agreement with City National. That was the $350,000 loan that was used for this improvement, the log cabin and the village hall. And we've made it compliant, and by that I mean that we have funded it accordingly, according to that document. And right now we're just waiting on a letter from the bank in order to, send this CAFR off to the state and be in compliance with the Auditor General. So the retirement accounts have been funded. FRS is currently funded to date as of yesterday's payroll. And I think what Pablo was trying to explain is that there was a GASB pronouncement that requires all municipalities now to list on their financial statements their pensions. And no, we don't have to further fund it. It's just kind of the market and what's going on today. But we are fully funded. We're whole there. So we don't have to put any additional monies away for that. I've reviewed, and I'm probably getting a little ahead of it, but I've reviewed the sanitation contract, and later on in your agenda, we're going to be proposing the sanitation budget for the next fiscal year so that we can keep up with the timeline with the property appraiser. But all of these things that I've just mentioned, they're necessary in order for me to evaluate the performance of the village and bring you the current financial statements so that we can present a proper budget, and really get a grasp on where we are. We've got these new legislation possibly coming through that's going to affect our property revenue, our assessed values. And, we probably have to tighten our belts and get ready to take another hit if the homestead exemptions are in fact increased. So all of that is in keeping. I'm really trying to put everything I've got into bringing this back to you in a month and really letting you know where we are, because right now it's really hard this sounded like bad news, but until we know what happened last year, I can't really give you a good picture of where we are today. And I didn't want to give you any false hopes or give you any worse news than anything that's the reality. So I just hope that you will trust me to do a good job, and I hope to help you make it happen and lower that millage rate. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your hard work on this, everybody. I know we're moving in the right direction. Okay. Are there any questions for her before we move on? No. Okay. We're on to selection of the village manager. I would like to open the floor for discussion on process before we move forward with that piece. Does anybody have any comments on process and how they'd like to proceed? Commissioner Ross?
Similar to the way that we selected the the candidates narrowed down to 3, I think perhaps we could just all put our choice on a piece of paper, pass it to the clerk, and let her, of course it'll be a public record and open to the public, but then let her tally those up and see if we can get a majority on the first ballot.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson-Turtle?
My only comment is that my understanding is that the process wasn't changing. I don't know how we would deal with it now as far as questioning any of the candidates publicly. Because I apologize. My understanding was that the process would be maintained from what has been done in the past as far as questioning candidates publicly. So my only question would be right now, maybe getting a consensus of the commission of whether or not we want to do that here tonight.
Okay. I'm just going to go through everybody, and then we'll come back around. Any comments?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Regarding I know prior we've had a process where we did public questioning of the candidate. However, I feel that the process that we actually followed this time was extremely beneficial for me, having the 30-plus minutes with each candidate to really kind of go over some detailed questions. And so I don't know if actually having a public Q&A with a candidate and asking a candidate one question, or I don't know if that's actually going to be of any additional benefit.
I remember sitting through it last year, and it seemed to me, and the year before, whenever we've done the manager, it seemed having to ask the candidates the same question, and this time they were all very different, and it seemed very awkward. I know from an HR point of view, when you're speaking to somebody, you speak to them in private, one-on-one with maybe one other person there. This was in front of a whole audience, and I was much happier with the way it was done this year.
Okay. My comment is kind of twofold. I first of all want to just address how the process changed and what happened to have that happen, so that the audience is aware of that. Previously, and it's done both ways in both village, and I think the attorney can speak to that, and I'd like to do that first. Can you speak to how it's been done in different cities? And
Sure. I just came off a process in another city where the process that they use, the headhunter nationwide search, and they did have a list of questions and took turns. There was actually 15 questions, so each commissioner had 3 questions, and people were actually on the dais. Then they broke out in separate rooms. There's about as many ways to do it as you would want. If you're going to sit as a commission, of course, and it is as awkward as Commissioner Bilt said, but that's the requirements of our sunshine law. But having said that, there's really, it is what the commission is comfortable with. So if the commission feels it needs that process, then you guys should do that process as you're talking about. If you feel you don't need that process and you're ready to have your vote, well then you don't. There's certainly no legal requirement. So from a legal point of view, there's no legal requirement to have that.
I ran on transparency, so part of the difficulty I struggled with is I really wasn't aware, and that's my own fault. I didn't see it hit the floor, so to speak, where the process dropped out, but I'd like to kind of review. I went back over it after I was made aware of it on Friday, and I kind of wanted to figure out, because I thought we had originally decided to go through the same process and not change anything. So with that, I can tell everybody what had happened as far as I can tell, and that is when interim manager Camara was retiring, we scrambled very quickly to try and find somebody. We didn't anticipate, we were going to, I think, do an interim manager search at the same time as doing a manager search. And there were a lot of things coming up, and to that end, I'm going to ask the village clerk to talk about what's coming up and the timeline and how quickly we have to get things done. So could you speak to what's coming up? And because I know you had recommendations about whether we should delay or not delay, and I spoke to you about it, so I'd like you to share your thoughts with the community on that.
One of the reasons that we had looked prior about accelerating the process was because of the timelines of different things that are coming up. The months of May, June, July, and August are crucial months for the village because you will be looking at a time frame where certain rates have to be provided to the county, where the budget season starts, where we have a number of different contracts that will be coming before you. And for that reason, it's really crucial to be able to make a decision and move forward, because you have tonight the issue with Waste Pro, and the reason why you have it tonight is because by June 12th, I have to already submit that to the county. Shortly after that, I have, that's on June 1st, we will be getting our preliminary rate for the special assessment. June 12th, I have to submit the special assessment. July 1st, I have taxable value and property taxes that are due. It just goes, the list goes on what we're going to be confronted with in the next couple of months. And, you know, I think we really leave our city, our village at a disadvantage when we have so much to do in such a short period of time and not having, you know, the decision made for a manager.
Okay, thank you. To that end, I will tell you how it dropped, so we understand. We were rushing to get somebody in place so we would have something in place. And during that, when it crossed over from one page to the other, honestly, when we were accelerating the timeline to get it done quickly, that is when that process dropped. It was not intentional. It just happened. I didn't see it. I told everybody before, I'll take the blame for that. As I was moving forward, I'm happy to do that. So I wanted to have the questions asked of the candidates. Having said that, I don't think it would change my mind at this point. I spent about probably a total of 2.5 hours probably with the candidates, an hour and 15 on the phone, another 45, so maybe whatever that adds up to be since I'm not feeling mathy tonight. But about at least 2 hours per candidate that I talked to. So I'm feeling comfortable with it. I know the community wanted that. We did have an open house where people could come talk to the candidate. I thought that's kind of where we would do that. So for me at this point, it's not that I don't want to do that. I really do. I would like to open it up and have the questions so that everybody feels comfortable from the community. At the same time, I'm very concerned that that would further delay, even if we had the questions tonight, would that necessarily delay our decision? So we'd have to then have time, because most of you, if you want to talk about the decision and hear the candidate, you're going to want to come back and talk to us, right? That's show of hands, yes? Most of you, but most of you have actually hunted us down already and found most of us and talked to us. So I've talked to I don't know how many people on this issue, so I feel comfortable the community's already reached out to me with their opinions. Having to do this over again, and if it ever has to go happen again, and I'm hoping it's not during the duration where I'm here, I'm hoping whoever's selected stays a long time, I will promise you that won't happen again. And so I apologize for that. Thank you.
If I could get back to comment on the panel interview question.
Yes.
When we set out, we said, let's look at the process the way we did it last time, and that was sort of like a starting off point, but we've diverted from that in several different ways already. So I don't feel like we have to follow exactly the same process we did before. We changed the offering itself. We, tweaked it, and we did different things that we didn't do in the last go-round. At this point, and having been through the process a couple of times now, there is so much more value in having the one-on-one and seeing the candidates interact with the public than in having, like the dog and pony show. I don't think that really has added much to our decision-making. So I'm ready to proceed tonight.
Okay, do we have a consensus ready to proceed?
Yes.
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 Okay.
If you don't mind, I will hand out to everyone.
Before you do, I'm going to ask, would you be so kind as to...
I volunteer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I'm trying to say that politely. You're volunteering. Thank you so much.
If I could add also,
Please.
Since we were asked to explain our decision, maybe once we reach a majority, we can then speak to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's very appropriate.
I'm sorry, I didn't anticipate this, so these are our ballots. And all it says is, it'll just say your name, and then you would choose. It's the new and improved way to ballot.
Thank you.
So, ranking 1 through 3, right?
We all have the same first action.
I know that last time for the record, you asked me to actually read out what your selection was. I'm going to do the same now.
Thank you.
It's done in no particular order, it's just where I picked up. Commissioner Bill selected Mr. Manners. Commissioner Ross selected Mr. Manners. Mayor Trumpman selected Mr. Manners. The Vice Mayor also selected Mr. Manners. And Commissioner Tudor also selected Mr. Manners. Would you like me to get him?
No, I
back
think
in?
since he's voluntarily outside, you can make it an official motion, and then if you'd like to have a brief discussion on the contract, we can
Do you have
that.
official motion to accept, how would I say that correctly, please?
Actually, to hire Mr. Christian Manners as your new village manager.
Do we have such a motion?
I make a motion to extend the offer to Mr. Manners for city manager position.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Mr. Tudor seconded? Mr. Tudor?
So we will do a contract, of course, and I don't know if you want to have a brief discussion on direction right now?
I think I'd like to...
Just generally, yeah.
Yep. First of all, I just want to thank all of the candidates. All three candidates who applied had different qualifications, but would have been suitable for manager. So I just want to extend a thank you to Mr. Irizarry as well as Mr. Cutney, and want to thank them both as well. We could go ahead and have a discussion as to why we selected Mr. Manners so that the community is aware of why we made those choices. Commissioner Ross, would you like to start?
Yeah, so, of course, we know Christian because he's been here before, and we know he's a man of integrity and hard worker, a team player, someone who is willing to pitch in and do anything that needs to get done. And he does it gladly and with a smile. I have seen him grow in this position, and as we all do when we face different challenges. Christian is very resourceful, and I have great confidence in his abilities. I look forward to working with him for for the rest of my term anyway, and then privately as a citizen. Thank you.
We're just going to go down the line, I think.
For my decision, I think I echo Commissioner Ross's sentiment. Just in dealing with Christian in this position, in the brief moment that I have. Can everyone hear me? Because the mic is on, but unfortunately, sorry. I've seen someone that's been very responsive. Times that I've reached out to him on issues, whether it was on the weekend or not. I had quick responses, and that's what I think we need in a village manager. We have a unique village, and with very particular needs. I've seen the staff happy. I've seen residents that have interacted very, very well with Mr. Manners, and that's what I want to see. And I think with that familiarity that Mr. Manners has with our community, we can move forward and get things done. I'm seeing things get done. And I was very pleased with that, and that's really the reason for my choice.
I've had the option of going into City Hall a couple of times, asked Christian certain things. If he didn't know, took a little while, I always got answers. When he was there, things were being run very, very efficiently. I can see things improving on a day-to-day basis, and that's why I picked him.
As for me, the decision was a simple one. You can see, as Commissioner Johnson Sardella was saying, you can see the change with the staff. There's some joy there. They seem to respond well to Mr. Manners. The other issue for me was when looking at the applicants, there were some who had much more municipal experience. I mean, countless years. However, Christian's experience, his municipal experience, is specific to Biscayne Park, and to me that was invaluable. He's proven it as interim that day one, he knows how to interact with the residents. He knows the unique little quirks with both the residents and the commission, and he knows how to handle that. So it was a simple decision.
I want to tell you that I bothered him tremendously. Go ahead. You can tell him. We have a joke now. I said, I'll call you in 2 weeks, and that means usually 5, 6 more times that day. I did not expect to be here today selecting him. I will tell you, it was my surprise and pleasure to see the level of not only work ethic, but his ability, if he doesn't know something, to figure it out. He does have a very unique understanding of our village. And we needed somebody who could hit the floor running and actually not stumble and fall, and if they do, know how to basically fix it. I was most impressed with a lot of the fiscal issues, which are a huge piece for this. We do have a lot of fiscal issues, and I said this when I ran, and I'll say it again. It's going to take time. There's nothing that's going to happen quickly. One of the questions I asked him, and I asked all the candidates, had to do with a decrease of anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 from our budget, which may very well happen because of the new legislation on extending the $25,000 more for the homestead exemption. It's gone through the House, back up to the Senate. Now it's going back to the House, and there's no way it won't pass the House from what I'm hearing. And then you all will vote on it. I'm hoping you say no. These are very tough decisions, and when I asked him, he never hesitated on what he would do. He knew, and even if he didn't make an absolute decision, if I backed him into a corner, which I did on the interview questions, along with many of the candidates, he knew specifically players and who to move and what to do. And I think that inner working and that knowledge really is invaluable, especially when we have so much to do and so quickly to get it done. So for that, it is my pleasure. And I look forward to working with you for the remainder of my term.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. And thank you all to the residents as well. You guys are all the reason that we're all up here, and it's just a pleasure working with all of you, and I look forward to many years of serving here. Thank you.
Don't worry, I'm not going to stop you from clapping. Okay. We're going to move on to 7C, which is the log cabin and a rental fee waiver request.
Should we talk about the contract?
I thought we would, the reason why I didn't want to bring that up yet is we have a standardization contract as part of new business, and I thought we could put it in the same time as that. Under 12A, do we have any objection to that from the dais? No? Mr. Bill?
No.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put the issue of the contract with the manager under new business 12, I guess we'll call it 12B. And I apologize for not doing that before. Okay, we'll move on to 7C, which is a log cabin rental fees. Fee waiver request. Please. And please introduce yourself as you go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. My name is Martha Hernandez, and I am an ESC certified teacher at David Lawrence Jr. K-8 Center. And I am also the president of the local nonprofit organization, Chapter 121 Miami of the CEC, which is the Council for Exceptional Children. And this is Allie Stone.
Hi, I'm Allie Stone, 11210 Northeast 8th Court. For any educators out there in the audience tonight, or if you live with an educator, know an educator, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of you, and to all of those that you know who work so hard to educate our youth. I'm a teacher at David Lawrence with Ms. Hernandez, and we we do some really great things there, but Ms. Hernandez specifically is a strong advocate and promotes and supports exceptional student education, which is what ESE stands for at David Lawrence. She's an angel for all that she does and for all of her students past and present. One of our coworkers, Leslie Tomsett, who lives at 835 Northeast 115th Street, she couldn't make it here tonight because she is currently working with some of our children at aftercare. So, okay.
So I want to give you a little background on CEC. CEC is the professional organization that advocates for special education issues nationwide. And we are the largest chapter in Florida, and we represent many of the teachers, administrators, professors, and other service providers of more than the 27,000 international members of CEC. And because we are the leading voice and vision of special and gifted education, our leadership was recently asked to speak about autism, the prevalence of autism in our Miami-Dade community, and how teachers work with students. And we were featured on the United Teachers of Dade radio show. And each year, we ask special education professionals to submit their applications for the ESE Awards. And each and every year, we are really amazed to learn of the many exceptional professionals who are committed to their vocation and make a difference in the education and the quality of life for children and youth with special needs. I'm happy to share that one of our members, Bernie Fernandez, was our chapter winner, and she went on to represent us at the state level, and she was awarded the 2015 Marjorie Crick Teacher of the Year for Florida, and she was also nominated for the national award, the Clarissa Hugg Teacher of the Year Award. So our annual awards ceremony is truly important as it provides our local teachers an opportunity to be recognized. So we find that this is a great venue. This is a great space as it is centrally located to our members. Our members come from Broward, all the way north in Broward, down to Homestead and everywhere in between. And some of our supporters of our local chapter are right here in Biscayne Park. That's Allie Stone, Leslie Tomsett, who couldn't be here with us tonight. And I want Ms. Stone to talk a little bit about how important it is for us to have this event here on Biscayne Park.
Thank you. So I'm a local resident living not too far within walking distance of right here, which most of you know that this is a great space. And I'm also involved in the CEC as I'm on the board. Oh, not on the board. I'm part of the committee for the local selection of this chapter. And I know many of the professional nominees. This is a great space. I've been here since 2008, and every time I see someone who's not from this local community, always is asking, when is the next Biscayne Park celebration? Because this is such a great space for people to come to, not just from the 5-mile radius, but we're talking about people coming from a 30-mile radius. And what it can offer Biscayne Park is a lot of advertisement and press for this venue specifically. Coming from, like Ms. Hernandez said, everywhere from Broward County to South Miami. And, you know, the park is such an amazing and unique, beautiful space. And with this log cabin being available as a venue to offer such amazing professionals to come here to celebrate the angels that work with children with special needs, I couldn't imagine another place to offer that type of celebration.
Okay, so having said that, I guess Allie would join me in requesting that. Let me see. What we're asking today is for a partnership that you partner up with us and make it possible to have our ESC Awards Brunch here in the log cabin. We request your presence if you're available in honoring the ESC teachers, and ask that you kindly donate the use of the space for this event, which is June 3rd, 2017, and it will be a morning, it will be a brunch event. It will be here we're expecting people from 10:30 to about noon, so it's about an hour and a half. So.
I have a question. How many people are you expecting?
Okay, so because we don't have the details finalized, we haven't advertised it. So we expect anywhere from 25 to really like 40 people at most. It's a small event. It's an intimate event. We're recognizing ESC Teacher of the Year, ESC Rookie Teacher, and Paraprofessional of the Year, and many of the administrators, assistant principals will also be joining their faculty members.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'd like staff, if you don't mind, talking about your recommendations, please.
Sure. Typically we have a non-resident rate for renting the log cabin of $600 and something. I don't remember what it was exactly. But we also have a resident rate, which is about half that. And staff recommends that we actually offer the resident rate to these guys. That way we can cover our staff expenses for having staff here on a Saturday to open and close and that sort of.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that recommendation. I would ask you to consider our 501c3 status. We are a small organization, and I looked at the resident price, and it would it would be something. First of all, that I would need to discuss with the board, but I find that it would be a little bit of a hardship on us, considering that we would like to use our funds to support teachers and directly those that work with the ESC population. So I would ask that you consider maybe a reduced fee as the 501c3 if that's possible.
Is it possible we could look at what our costs are and get that down a bit for them so they can afford that? If other commissioners are in consensus with that.
Just wanted to let you know, it is in your package. This is the item that's on there. It's for one of the reasons why the fee's a little higher. It's because it's on the weekend. It's on a Saturday, so that's one of the reasons. And it's $350 for the residents, and it's $500 for non-residents, and that's per hour. And they would be here an hour and a half, so that would come out to, I believe, $425. If I did my math correctly.
Yes. I don't know.
And that's at the resident rate.
At the resident rate. If we could get that down to the weekday rate, if that would not be objectionable to the colleagues.
Downtown
and I
Central.
volunteer my time to be staff.
Oh.
Realistically, if Mayor, if you're willing to volunteer your time to open and close and be staff, then it's really the cost of electricity, which will be minimal during, for an hour and a half. The village can certainly absorb that, so.
Okay, I'm happy to, and it's up to the, I know we don't want to set precedent to constantly not use this as a space, but I think in this particular example, I understand their limited budget, and I'm more than happy to volunteer for that. And just a minute. So if the commission is in consensus on that, I do think we have one resident who'd like to make a comment. I know we don't normally open for public comments. Mr. Samara, did you want to volunteer as well?
No. To my business, Creepy Critters Pest Control, does a lot of business in Biscayne Park. And if the village is willing, and if they're not willing to lay out the whole amount, I'll lay out the difference of what the village agrees
Thank
to.
you. That's very kind of you.
I don't want the village, the residents, to lose the amount of money that would have been coming in from that. So I'm willing to donate the balance of whatever the commission decides to donate.
Thank you very much. That's most kind of you.
And Mayor, I will volunteer my services as staff that day as well.
Fantastic.
Could make a comment? So on Saturdays, we normally have our code officer here. That could be the staff person that opens and closes the building. Because this is going to be, in essence, a donation, a charitable donation, our charter requires that we do it by resolution, and I think by a supermajority. So if we have 4 people in agreement
If you're waiving
to
the funds.
waive the fee as a donation, then we could do that. But I would, and I don't know if everyone else agrees with me, but this is me personally, I would like to see a deposit posted. We normally have a $500 deposit,
Okay.
and it could be just in the form of a check that gets returned, would not be negotiated and gets returned to you at the end of after the building's inspected.
Okay, thank you so much. That should not be a problem. How much is the deposit? Just to,
What's the normal?
The normal deposit.
I think it's 500. Yep, it's $500.
$500
So we'll do a security deposit, which will return upon inspection.
Yes.
okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I don't have words.
We have to vote
say.
yet, so
Oh.
wait yet. Don't get excited yet. Is there a motion to waive?
I'll make a motion to draft and adopt a resolution waiving the rental fee as a charitable donation to your 501c3 and only requiring the $500 deposit to be returned after an inspection.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Done.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to approval of the minutes. That one change was made.
Consent.
I'm sorry. I've done that twice now because it's on the bottom. Consent agenda. Prior to doing so, I do need to ask the city manager, would that one change that we discussed was corrected?
That was corrected, yes.
Thank you very much. So on the consent agenda, we have a consent to approve everything that's on the balance of the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, now we have, moving on to ordinances. Village Attorney, could you please go over ordinance 2017-01?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, creating new section 2-37 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Biscayne Park entitled Public Safety Advisory Board, providing for conflicts, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Request to approve set second reading in June and hold a public hearing.
Open for discussion?
Open to the public.
Open to the public for discussion? Are there any public comments? Please don't forget to sign in, because we don't know who you are.
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. First, I want to say, Dan, that was very generous of you to offer to pay some of the costs. And for Christian to donate his time. And Tracy, I think you offered something as well. So,
Same thing.
very good. The only thing I have to say, I think it's a very good idea to form a public safety advisory board. However, at this time, I think we might want to defer it, and because there's staffing issues, usually we have a staff member that attends some of the board member meetings. We ought to consider what the level of people who will be involved on the board, whether they're professional. I think there's certain professional credentials that might be very helpful in being on this board. So, although, as I say, I think it's a good idea, but we're short on staff right now. There is some attorney time involved, and that's all. I think you might want to consider and maybe at some point in the future, and just for now, setting it aside. And by the way, Christian, congratulations. I shouldn't have said that first. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Fred Jonas, 918 119th Street. I guess I disagree with Chuck. I don't think it's a good idea. We do have opportunities for public input about public safety issues. We have them probably, 3 or 4, 5 times a year. We have the Crime Watch get-togethers, Coffee with a Cop, whatever you want to call them, and they provide a very nice opportunity for anybody who's genuinely interested in this to come forward, listen to things they may not know about, and offer opinions or advice, and I think that's really served us pretty well. Our important representatives from the police are always there, the chief is there, and other higher ranking officers are there, and usually we have 3, 4, 5, or 6 other officers, and as I say, it's been consistently a very good opportunity for all of us to put our heads together, to say what we want to say, and to be listened to. To superimpose a board like this, I think, really accomplishes nothing. I'm frankly disappointed that we're spending the money for an ordinance to talk about this, and it also drains off interest that people might have in other boards which are not always fully manned. So I hope you don't vote for this.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. I think it's a terrific idea. Everything serves its place. Crime Watch is invaluable. What Chuck has done with that and resurrecting it, and those gatherings, and the Coffee with a Cop, all invaluable. This is a whole different animal. This is to lend a level of structure where things will be discussed and quantified. Two different issues. One doesn't cancel out the other, and I certainly hope you do vote for it.
Thank you. Any other public comments? None. Floor will close for public comments for that ordinance. Is open for discussion? Any other discussion, Commission?
Yes, I personally think the Public Safety Board would be advisory board would be a good idea. As we stand now, Crime Watch, all the other meetings we have, none of them actually report to the Commission. Nothing is ever given basically back to us in writing. I'd like to see the Public Safety Board do things like do some research about what it would cost and how we could go about putting lighting in the village that people could actually see that would light the streets, maybe lowering the lights, see what we could do about possibly making some of our streets one way. All these things take a tremendous amount of time, and it's not fair. We haven't got enough staff to have staff do everything. So I think the Public Safety Advisory Board would be very good at this sort of thing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Tudor, I know it's yours.
Actually, I would have to, I think Commissioner Bill touched base on a lot of the reasons why I presented this idea about the Public Safety Advisory Board. We've had other informal gatherings and meetings where we get input from residents, but this is an opportunity to really get down and get the numbers, do the homework, and actually report back to the Commission on what we can do to make this park safer for residents, whether it's speed mitigation tools, lighting, public walkways. I mean, these type of things that should be researched and brought back.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson-Sardella. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Johnson-Sardella.
I would have to agree. I see this as being different than, the Community Watch. And I've gone to those meetings and I've heard residents sometimes bring up the same issues over and over, and it doesn't seem to be addressed because, like Commissioner Bilt has said, nothing's really reported back to the Commission. And there's more to safety, lighting situation, streets, traffic. So I think it is a good idea, and it's a chance for the Commission to get some input and actually get things done. So I would agree with the board.
Commissioner Ross?
I have a couple of questions, and one is where it sets out the responsibilities of the board, or the items that the board's charged with. They're charged with review and or recommending to the Commission public safety management policies, policy changes, long-range plans. Is it contemplated that this committee or board is going to have the police's operating procedures to review and comment on? Is that part of the process?
Did you hear the question?
I would not see them being involved in oversight of the police or anything along those type of lines. Just more of a, I mean, Nick, you know, the way I originally viewed it was more of a advising the commission on infrastructure projects tied to public safety.
Is there some language you would like to see changed in there so that's clear?
No, I just wanted to understand what their charge is. Number 2 says the advisory board will review and comment to the commission on the annual public safety management requests. I'm not sure what that is. Annual public safety management requests.
Commissioner Tudor?
Well, this is one of those, I always kind of imagine this is going to be more along the lines of the administration, whether it be Christian, the chief, identifying issues regarding public safety, bringing that to the board.
Do you see it as a partnership between, I just want to be clear, do you see it as a partnership between village administration, the police, because depending on what the issue is, depends on whether or not the police are even involved in that, and working with them to then bring it back to the commission as things we might consider budgeting or doing policy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
So say when we're preparing the budget and the administration has certain capital improvements perhaps that they put in allowance for in the budget, is anticipated that this board will review those and give a recommendation to the commission, because they're not advisory to administration. They're only advisory to the commission.
Are you asking me or Commissioner Tudor?
I'm just trying to understand what it's going to, what is,
I mean,
what the
be
intent
honest,
is.
if this is, if number 2 is a hang-up, I don't want to see the idea of a public safety advisory board being killed over, like, item number 2, I could see
Right.
taking that item out.
So, because my reading of it is, you know, if the administration and the chief decide that we need to lease another car, this seems to say that they're going to review that request.
Yeah, and that's not what I would expect this board to do. So I could see the confusion with number 2, so I could see removing number 2 out of there.
Okay, I would feel better if we took that out. And
Is there any-
we may intend something today, but 4 years from now, there'll be other people sitting
Yep.
here and they may give it a different spin. And I don't want to hamstring the administration where it's hard enough to get things done as it is.
No, exactly, because I think what we need to focus on is the big picture of what this board is intended for and what it's to accomplish. So that's why we're here. And number 2, I could see removing that. I have no problem with pulling that out.
So I make a motion that we amend the ordinance by removing number 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
And then it doesn't say anything about it in the ordinance, but is it contemplated that there will be a staff liaison person, or is this really for the board to function independently and report back to the commission?
I'm sorry.
I imagine that in order to do their research and deliberating, they're going to need some like background information, and then they'll go from there to outside sources to come back with a package report. So there's going to be some interaction between the administration and the board, but that could be done, I think, through a written request or an email. Will it be necessary for there to be a staff person at the board meetings, at this advisory board meeting?
I guess that'd be more for a question for Christian.
I think it would be beneficial. Certainly as we launch the board and get it started, I can volunteer to be the staff person for that. And, you know, if we see a year down the road that the board is, you know, doing wonderfully and doing great work and are standing on their own, then perhaps we can go to, you know, them not having to be staffed with each board meeting. But I'd be happy to help out and get them going.
And just as a reminder, we would need to notice the meetings, and someone would take the minutes. And okay.
Thank you for volunteering. That's most kind of you.
And then, of course, before we go to a second reading, we're going to need that feasibility report from the manager as required by our code. Okay.
Do you anticipate there being, well, I'll wait till the feasibility study comes back. Never mind, I'll withdraw my question.
Okay.
Are there any other comments? Okay, I just want to make final comments on this. I support a public safety advisory board for a multitude of reasons. I do think that as I was working to do legislation to get monies to do cameras and other things for the police, and after talking to the chief and other safety issues with lighting and roads, and there's just so many things that really need to happen, and I think you need a team of people to do that. And I think this affords us that opportunity with volunteers who are willing to kind of do the legwork on it. So I fully support this board. Thank you. Is there a motion to move this? We already made the motion, I'm sorry.
No, we made a motion just to remove item 2.
Okay, is there a motion?
To approve the ordinance.
Do we move the motion to approve the ordinance?
Correct, and the vote will be by roll call.
By roll call, please.
After a motion and a second.
Is there a motion?
I make the motion.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
No, roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call?
Mayor Trumpman,
Yes, approved.
Vice Mayor Sardello,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
No.
Commissioner Tudor.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Now we move to 9B. I'm going to open up public comments for that ordinance, but first, Attorney Hearn, could you please go over 2017-02?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, creating new Section 2-38 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Biscayne Park entitled Grant Writing Advisory Board, providing for conflicts, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Open to public comments?
Fred Jonas, 918 119th Street. Will Tudor has given us an excellent illustration as to what was wrong with the last ordinance. He talked about a number of kinds of things that such a board might decide would be beneficial, things like lighting, sidewalks, etc. And the problem is we don't have money for any of that. So if we look at this current ordinance, we can see that this is even worse, in the sense that what this kind of a group would theoretically do is decide about going after one grant or another. The problem is we don't have anybody to do grant writing. Now we've had, in the past, we had one person who was running for a commission in part on a platform that if elected, he would help the village write grants. He got elected, he got mad at the village, and he refused to help us write any grants. Last month, when we talked about this issue, Tracy, I think you mentioned that you would be in a position, or that you have written many grants in the past. The problem is you have never come forward to offer to write grants for the village. So the question is, what do we do when this little group sits around, thinks of grants, and nobody wants to write them? All we've done is we've occupied people, given them a little opportunity to sit around and talk, and it amounts to nothing. And again, what it does is it draws off interest from some of the other boards. So I hope you vote against this one.
Any further public comments? And I'd like to address the comments that were made. I see this board as the people writing the grants. I don't see this as an independent board that says to the staff, hey, write some grants. You've got so much time on your hands. That was, to me, not the intention of the grant writing board. Yes, I have written several grants. I have gone after many grants, foundation grants, NSF grants. I understand what it takes to write them. I understand the time it takes. And there's no way the staff will do this, but we miss out on opportunities, especially on foundation monies. I know state monies right now are not there. But I also found in applications, whether we're doing county monies, depending on what the title grants might be for the park, you need a community that does that. There are places for free that you can go and use computers to do grant searches on the specific topics you're looking for. There are ways to do this and to have a group of people that are interested, especially if they're priorities of the community. Whether that's lighting. I think you had mentioned solar in an email. Sorry, there's no wind in Florida. But there are areas in which we can really expand and try and get some revenue. We are about ready to be hit for 2000, let's do this correctly, 19, am I doing that right? 2019, with possibly anywhere from 100 to, and do not quote me because I think we're still looking at those numbers, anywhere from 113,000 up to 200,000. So that's what I was looking at. I just want to make sure before I said, because last time I said a number, I said it wrong, so I want to make sure I'm correct. So anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. That's an enormous sum of money for our community to lose. And we can't make that up in tax revenue because we don't have a millage to go up any further. So that has to come from cuts. I think we have to be at every avenue we can, whether it's lobbying to get us money. We're still hopeful to get the $20,000 for the cameras. But that even took writing. I mean, that takes writing. Even when I did the road stuff, I rewrote it. It takes time to do these things. And while I may be able to volunteer doing some of these things, under this current position, obviously I don't have the time I would normally have to do this volunteer. I volunteered before. I will still help out. I'm happy to help out again if they need help getting them started. But I believe that doing this is essential to the community because we really have to look at every possible avenue to get funding. And there are private foundations and other things that can be had. Thank you. You had your chance. Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Johnson-Sordella? I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand.
No, it's no problem. I agree. I mean, we're pushing up against our max on our millage. I think we need to look for all opportunities to find funding to do the things that we need to do. And if it is the intent of this board that they will be doing the grant writing, then I don't have an issue with that. I don't think that we should preclude any avenues in which to seek funding for this village to do things that the residents want to keep us moving forward. I don't think we should shut the door on that. So that's...
Any other comments? Commissioner Ross?
Yes. My concern is that it is going to create a burden on staff because we can't delegate out our procurement process. So you get a grant and you're going to get the money, and the grant has certain criteria and certain requirements that it needs to be administered. The other side of it is, on the purchasing side, we can't delegate out to a committee to do procurement. We have to do that through the administration. And it's just a complicated process, and I think that this adds an additional layer of something that the staff has to manage. And we frankly don't have the spare man hours to do it.
Thank you. I do think Commissioner Ross has some very good points about staff time and what grants do. And I think I can say manager, Christian Manners maybe, or intermanager, we'll see how that's politically correct for now, can talk about the staff time it takes. But I will tell you that if you write a $2,500 grant or you write a $150,000 to $200,000 grant, those are very different animals. And they both take the same time to write. But one of them you can include a grant coordinator. Ideally, if you're writing any large grants, you put in, and you also can pay for staff time. So salaries from staff time can come from that. If a certain amount, let's say they're spending 15% or 20% of your time on that grant, that now is charged to the salary of that individual. And that saves us on outlay. So I think it's a matter of how we do it, how smart we are about it, and not trying to pick off little tiny grants that take a lot of time and don't give a lot of money in return. Would you concur with that, sir?
I would, actually, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I've got one question. Maybe we should change one of the lines in there to make this a little bit more exact as far as what we need. Maybe it should say grant writing and advisory board, because we expect them to help write the grant. I'm not sure if that would be correct or not. That's
Commissioner Tudor?
Well, one of the issues that was brought up, I kind of want to go back to one of the things. I want to point out the...
Can you move the mic?
Oh.
Closer, just closer.
Under item D, duties and responsibilities, this is not a board that's going to go out and just start writing grants on their own. Just go out and say, hey, I identified this, let me go ahead and write this up, I'm going to run with this, without input from the commission or
direction
from the village. That's why it specifically states in here that they will submit all proposed grant opportunities to the Village Commission for approval prior to preparation of and submittal of any grant applications. I mean, there's a lot of passionate people here in the village who want to contribute in some way. So I'm hoping that there will be those individuals who will take this opportunity, that when the commission gives direction that we're looking to, go back to, everybody talked about lighting, we're looking to improve lighting, this board will have that direction, that this is an item that the commission is looking to move forward on, that they can come back with some type of grant research, some type of grant opportunities that we may be able to move forward on, present it to the commission, and then we can say yay or nay on if we want to pursue that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you object to the name change, or is that already clear, you think, inside the ordinance? And I'll ask the attorney for his recommendation on that.
Well, I'm not so sure that Grant Writing and Advisory Board, they are an advisory board, and I'm not so sure you're green lighting them to write grants either. In the way this is written, it would come to you, and then you could ask them to write the grant or not accept the grant. So
Okay.
I think it's okay this way. If that one change wouldn't make the difference for me. Legally, I think we're better this way if you're going to go forward.
Thank you. So with that, is any other further comments before I close for discussion? All right, is there a motion on the floor?
I make the motion to move this to second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Trumpman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson Sardella,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
No.
Commissioner Tudor.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, we have another resolution. I'll have the attorney go ahead and read that resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Resolution 2017-27, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the solid waste assessment fee for the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2017, providing for severability, providing for inclusion, providing for an effective date. You can also open that to the public if you'd like.
Open the public comments if anybody has any comment on this.
Bob Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. One of the things I've noticed in that there's going to be less money going back into the general fund for administrative costs, which in turn will lower the rates. I'm just concerned of when you come budgeting, you're going to actually have less money going into the general fund that's going to be made up someplace.
Go ahead, please. Calling in the experts.
The reason why there's less money going in is because a portion of administrative fees are recouped from the sanitation process. And because we've had such a large change in administration, those salaries are now lower. So it's really only a $2,800 change, but it's because you're paying lower salaries, lower benefits, and that's actually captured here. So we've already cut it back by $2. So that's your answer. Anything else? No?
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it very much. Are there any other public comments? Okay, we'll close the floor to public comments. Is there a motion? Or first, let me open for discussion. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2017-27.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, wait, I'm sorry, second. I'm sorry, did you want a discussion first?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's a motion, but I did ask for discussion before the motion.
But you can take a motion and a second and then have discussion.
Okay, motion, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, open for discussion.
Since we possibly have people now that we're paying a little less to, it very well may be within 6 months, their salaries will be the same way they are now versus being lower.
I actually built in a 3% increase to those salaries,
Okay.
just to capture any possible increases. And I also caught the increase in health insurance that was discussed earlier. So I tried to cover all my bases.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess, and my other thought is, I think it's about time we started possibly building a little bit of a cushion into our sanitation fund for any additional things that we need, sanitation oriented. It doesn't have to be zeroed out at the end of the year. So in fact, let's say 3 years from now, we decided we wanted to go with a different company, we wanted to buy a truck for our guys to do some of the other sanitation, we would have some funds available.
I'm going to let the attorney,
Commissioner Bilt and I spoke about this, and we also spoke with Pablo. It is an enterprise fund, so in the enterprise fund, it doesn't have to be zeroed at the end of the year. If you have money in there, and many cities do, because exactly what was said there, kind of a capital fund where you know you're going to eventually have to expend more in a given year. It's certainly legal to do that if you'd like to do that. But, you know.
the current cost per household is $10 less, I think.
It's $388.29 a year. That's the new number.
The new one, which is down $2, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there discussion on, any further discussion on Commissioner Bilt's idea of funding it with a little increase? Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so we have a second on the floor. Go ahead and call the vote, please. Is it a roll call now for
It's a
resolution?
resolution, you can
So,
vote.
all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
No.
Okay. There's no old business. There is new business. This is the standardized contract for key positions requested by Commissioner Johnson Sardella. So Commissioner Johnson Sardella, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Johnson Sardella. I just have it in my head one way. Sorry.
Thank you. That's no problem. This item, in light of even tonight that we're going to be entering into a new contract, I wanted to bring up the idea and open it up to discussion for the Commission of standardizing our contracts, which I feel you can see in the memo. It will create efficiency. It will help with staff members monitoring our contracts, making sure that our vendors are held to their obligations. It also will reduce costs because as we standardize our contracts, it's less in negotiation time, less attorney time that we're paying for. We have more certainty in our contracts. We're able to have, like I said, staff members to look at the contracts, know what the performances are. They can become familiar with it, and we have less issues moving forward with monitoring contracts. I know when I used to come to meetings with discussing the Waste Pro contract, for example, there was times where I felt like things were missing in performance because the contracts weren't being properly monitored. But if we have more standardization, everyone will be on the same page as to what's expected moving forward. So I wanted to bring this in front of the Commission to see if everyone feels the same way.
I just want to add one comment before passing it off. Is I think that for me, one of the things after talking to several mayors, that when you, and I know the word outsource or contract out services, one of the things they do to maintain control, because it's no longer their staff. They're bringing an outside staff in. And I know there's been a lot of comment about staff, and this person didn't do that. One of the controls it does give the manager, if you have standardized contracts, and Weston has done a great job of this, as of other cities, in making sure there's a performance clause that allows the village manager to basically say, that person, don't want them here, please replace them. It gives them some control and some additional control over quality. And I think that's kind of important. I'd like to see adopted into some of our outsourced services or some of our contract services. And I'll open the floor for anybody else. Commissioner Ross.
So when I read this item, I was trying to understand exactly which contracts would fit into sort of this bucket, because we have a contract with our manager, and that's an agreement between the manager and the village. But all of the rest of the employees we don't have contracts for. They're just employed, hired and fired by the manager. We have a contract now with our finance manager, and these are really such individualized services that it's difficult to put everything into, a fill-in-the-blank cookie-cutter agreement. Several of our other contracts are piggybacked from other cities. So it's not like we're creating one, we're taking advantage of the pricing that is afforded to a larger city, and we're bringing that pricing in. With that, we have to also bring in that contract. We can't create a new one. I do know about 2, maybe 3 years ago, the village attorney worked with the manager to standardize contracts for the rec center. So all of the sort of vendors that are offering services at the rec center, there's a standardized contract for that. But I'm not sure, we're going to ask our village attorney standardize a contract that we may not even ever use because it just doesn't fit into our situations. If I had a better understanding of exactly what contracts would be covered here, then, I can
Well,
maybe absorb it.
For that, I probably would defer to our village attorney. I spoke with our attorney briefly to understand which contracts would fit into this. I believe our village manager contract will fit in, and vendor contracts, and Commissioner Ross, like you mentioned, our employees don't have anything, so that wouldn't fall under this. But if you can shed some light.
Right, I don't think it's possible to standardize contracts just generally, right? Because you have waste management, and then you have a contract with your finance director. I mean, they're completely different. But what we try to do, for example, when we did do just a bunch of contracts recently involving the interim chief, involving the interim manager, involving our finance director, we standardized that because those were all in the same. We standardize as much as we can our RFPs, right? So the indemnification, the insurance is exactly the same. But even though you standardize those contracts, there are plenty of like we do IT contracts. The IT contracts are usually throughout the country, a lot of these places, even though small, and they have completely different contracts, and they're not going to allow us, for the most part, to draft it, especially if it's for a small amount. A lot of these software is very small. We'll do a codicil, or an amendment to the contract where we make sure we have our indemnification to us is very important, that we don't waive our sovereign immunity rights under 76828 Florida statutes, and insurance is very important to us. So I think it's, and we try to do it, and I think we're happy to relook at that to make sure we continue to have standard clauses. But it is true with Commissioner Ross says, like just now that Grubbs contract we just did, that was a piggyback from Hernando County. The important thing for us is that it was consistent with our RFP purchasing process, that it went out to a competitive bid. That's a standby contract. We've had the contract with Grubbs first time you were here, and before the first time you were here, we've never, thank God, had a call on it yet. Wilma we did. That's how long ago it was, Wilma 2005. So I think it's a good point. As far as the manager contract, there won't be another contract like his, unless we end up having employment contracts, which we don't have contracts here. There may be something that the manager will bring up, or we'll have just a little kind of a unique contract. So what we do is the contracts aren't always standard, but certainly our indemnification, our sovereign immunity, our insurance, we try to do that. And so we can relook at that and make sure we're doing it, though, because there's been a lot of changeover, and make sure that Marlon and Christian have our minimums. Our RFPs are very standard.
And I guess that is a good idea to relook at it, make sure we are doing it. And you mentioned some clauses, and I guess I would like to address whether or not there's maybe some other clauses that we could also standardize. Understood that some contracts are going to be unique, but I think that they're on those contracts that are not either piggybacked or we're in a situation where we don't have the leverage and the contracts are coming to us. But if in any opportunity we're able to tweak our contracts in a manner which we keep these standard clauses that benefit the village, I'd like to see that done.
Might I suggest, I know Vice Mayor's background is an attorney, and I know Attorney Hearn. Perhaps you two could work together, discuss this, and bring it back with more specifics. That would help us. I personally thought we had some contracts that were problematic, and I think you and I have discussed them. So
yeah, and often, it comes down to a business decision, often. you know, involved in a contract building a new city hall, and you know, big companies are not going to agree to your contract, and then it becomes a business decision. So, you know, if you want, you know, just throw out a name, Johnson Controls, to do your IT work, their contract, they're the standard contract, and then you have to try to work off it, and you'll get some of what you want, and in the end you don't, and then it becomes a business decision whether or not we can move forward.
I understand. I'm just in support of more standardization to make it easier to implement contracts and to oversee them for the staff. I'm also want to make sure that we are getting the best deal we can with clauses that protect us and ones that are not contradictory and also don't have an issue with the charter if they're employment contracts. So I just think the two of you maybe, I just would feel more comfortable having the two of you sit down and work on this. It's not my expertise, and maybe come back and have some ideas that are more specific and concrete to which types of contracts, whether they're personnel, vendor-based for children care, child care, whatever the situations are. Some of the more contracts that we constantly get in and out of a lot, it may not be the specialty contracts, but it may be stuff that we're likely to be reoccurring on, if that would be okay with the commission. Okay?
I don't think that we need to spin our wheels and work attorney time on something that's not necessary right now.
Okay, so I guess we have to make a motion then, yes? If
you'd like to, sure. I mean, I'll be happy to sit down.
Sit down
with the
anyway,
Vice Mayor.
then come back? That we don't need a motion for that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like it's the majority, so, I mean,
Is there,
Vice Mayor and I speak, we can speak about this, so it's not, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any, I know we have to talk about the manager's contract, and I'd like to procedurally figure out the best approach to that and how we should go about doing that. Do you have any recommendations, Attorney Hearn?
Well, there's several ways to do it. We'll be talking about sunshine law again. Just Commissioner Ross has asked me to bring that up again. So here we are in the sunshine. There's different ways to do this. I just did a contract for a manager, which was signed on Monday, and I actually sat down individually with each commissioner, and then it's the delicate balance of deciding what the five of you actually want, which is not always exactly the same, so I have to use my discretion at some level and negotiate that contract. Then this contract's going tomorrow morning to a commission meeting, so, and it looks like it will pass. But that's one way. The other way is to actually speak about it here. It's not the typical way you negotiate. Our contracts, we've had recent managers' contracts, so they're not really a secret of what we offered the last village manager. And I don't know if you'd like to work off that, and if you're comfortable talking about that, we can. Or if you'd rather me each call you tomorrow, I can do that too. So
My preference is to go ahead and do that tomorrow.
is everybody available for a call tomorrow? Or? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, for me, in the interest of transparency, I think it's better to have the discussion here, and that way the audience knows what we're talking about. But alternatively, you can collect everyone's comments, I suppose, and come back and report what you've learned.
Right. I mean, what we're looking at is always comes down to the salary, the vacation or
paid time off,
PTO, time off, and really our contracts for the most part, and there's a termination provision because that's how managers are. And we have pretty consistently, otherwise, basically, have given the same benefits as everyone else, and of course, a cell phone, and your typical vehicle reimbursement. So there aren't that many. So
I would feel more comfortable calling and then coming back.
Okay.
I would feel more comfortable doing that. Okay. And then we're going to come back, so it'll be fully transparent. You'll see the contract, you'll hear what was negotiated and discussed, and then we can all have our comments and do it publicly as well, so it's full transparency. But I think in a negotiation, I saw it done previously, and I just think it's very awkward on the dais. I just do.
And one of the things you can do, you can decide whether you'd like to speak with individually.
Exactly.
Mr. Manners first, and then call me.
Yes.
Okay. I'll be available. I'll give everybody an email tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a consensus on that? Yes.
Yes.
So that we would bring this back to our next meeting next month? It's important for Mr. Christian, I think, because he's currently being paid a flat amount as if, without Social Security, without any of the salary
I have,
burdens.
not that it's beneficial to have special meetings, I have no problem holding a short meeting for that contract purposes so that he can get paid in a more timely manner, if everybody's in agreement with that. I think he warrants that. And we can come up with a special meeting date now, if everybody would like, so that he doesn't have to wait.
Got a thought, instead of having a special meeting because it's more expensive and people don't know about it, can we in fact come up with whatever we're going to do and he agrees to make it retroactive to this date? Is that a possibility? So he gets the benefits of Social Security, whatever?
It's a possibility. With the employment records, you could do that? Yes. Okay, so.
Absolutely,
Okay.
that
All right,
works.
so
This way we get our time and he'll get his benefits.
So the first day is May 2nd, or is that what you're suggesting? First day of the contract?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have the contract in June.
The only thing he loses, I would believe, would be medical insurance. That would be the only thing that you would not have, but I don't know if that would be... Are you getting medical? That's the only thing. Is that create a problem for you? Not really. Okay. All right. So then I just want to make sure. All right. So are we in consensus that we're retroactive to May 2nd? And is there a motion to do so? Do we need a motion for that or consensus? Consensus?
It's consensus. If that's your direction, that's what I'm coming back with. For approval of a contract that starts effective May 2nd, it'll be retroactive, but it will come in June.
Yes.
Okay. One quick question. I'm currently working under a contract as a consultant here. Would that contract stop? Would I continue to be paid, or am I looking not getting paid until June, but getting paid right away?
No, we would continue to pay under the consulting contract, and then could we true that up? Yes. It's all up to B.
Not that we completely rely on you right now, yes.
Well, on that we do.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, may just be clear that he would be paid as is, and then retroactively, anything that's due back to you would then be given to you at that point. Okay? Is that an agreement? Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to make sure the main character there is over in agreement, so thank you. All right, thank you. So...
If I could ask, as far as the insurance goes, generally, if you we're starting on May 2nd, so May, there would be no insurance, but starting June 1st, the insurance would kick in. Okay.
Yeah. So is there any request for placement on items on next meeting's agenda? The contract. I'm suggesting we put the contract on there, please.
Mark play.
Okay. Report from the interim, excuse me, I'm going to cross that out. Report from the village manager.
Well, a lot of what we've done has been covered tonight with the CAFR, so we're looking forward to getting started on the 15-16 as soon as possible. Beatrice gave us a great update on where we are and what we're trying to figure out as far as the finance department goes. I'm so grateful to have her and her experience on board. She's been phenomenal, and I look forward to continuing to work with her. By referring to Chief Walschlager earlier, Mayor, you sort of let the cat out of the bag. But
oops.
Congratulations, Nick. I just want to say thank you for all your work, and we're delighted to have you as chief. Okay. And so,
You could stand and smile. We'd love to see that.
Well,
Is there a problem with contract? We have to wait.
Well, this is going to be a non-standard. It's really not a contract. There's a request by the chief, and this is the request basing his acceptance on, in all fairness, that he would like for 2 years that if he is demoted, non-criminal type thing, we'll put, it's just going to be a very simple agreement that he has the option to return back to his current position. And if that, because that is technically an agreement which the manager can execute as authorized by the commission, I'm just bringing that up. If he was just hiring him without that agreement, that's 100%. But I want everybody to understand that that's been the request and that's the intent that the manager's going to enter into tomorrow with that agreement, that if any time during a 2-year period, and if there's no objection to that, then
Is there consensus? No objection?
Yeah, no objection.
No objection.
Could we have an official swearing in of the chief at the next
Absolutely.
regular meeting?
Can we put that on the agenda?
Absolutely.
and so that's how we're going to move forward with that 2-year. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Chief, thank you. Boards, is there anything else from the manager?
I can drone on for a while if you guys are wanting to just hang out. So
No,
I'll
no.
keep it short tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so boards, and is there board committee reports?
Mayor, I have a.
I'm sorry?
I have a.
Oh, village attorney, I skipped you.
an
That's
update.
twice in 2 meetings. I'm
That's-
so sorry.
That's no problem at all. Fine. I just had this and nowhere to go. First of all, as you did say, and I always like to say this time of year, the citizens of Florida's, there's no greater time when the citizens of Florida's liberty and property is at stake than when the state legislature is in session. You did mention this is going to go to a referendum now in November of 18, so it would take effect during the 1920 fiscal year if it goes forward, which is an additional $25,000 property tax, which now makes it up to $75,000. Interestingly, only $25,000 is the school board affected, and they're exempt on the other 50. So that's in front of us.
Sean, aren't there some addendums to that, making it up to 100,000?
Well, if you're military or handicapped, that's right. But the standard, the automatic, is 50 right now, which could go to 75. Okay, so Commissioner Ross asked me, I think you all received the memorandum on, there's 3 questions that came up on the Sunshine Law, and want to go ahead and talk about them. And it's interesting that I'll get to on this, because these involved, some of them were these boards. We always think about Sunshine Law, elected officials and appointed official on our boards, but it even does include subcommittees. So when there was 3 things. One was the village manager community update. One was a PAM committee, and the third one was a meeting of police leaders from outside the village to discuss police candidates with the village manager. So the village manager community update was simply the village manager's meeting. There were commissioners there. We often have in other meetings. And so there's no prohibition, as you all know, because you sometimes are at these meetings, for 2 or more elected officials to be there. What is the prohibition is for there to be any cross discussion on anything which could foreseeably come before your commission or board for action, and there was no indication of that. So that meeting was proper, and it didn't implicate the Sunshine Law because there was no cross communication.
Just as a clarification, though, in the future, we need to be careful about making sure we put that on any type of
I
notification.
always like to put it on if we know 2 or more, and I think we do it for all our committee and board meetings, and if not, we should.
We do usually. That was an exception.
Right, and the key there is, and this is a good reminder, even though we have it on there, your boards and your committees, you appoint them to give you a different opinion than you may have, so they can come to you. So, and I've seen some cities where commissioners are very active in those meetings, but to me, it's kind of contrary to why you have those boards. So, even though we might put it on there, anytime you have that cross communication, it doesn't look good. It's not as public as your meetings here, so I always prefer none of you speak about the issues that are going to come before you. The PAM committee meeting, and I'm looking at my memo, and I had limited information on this. As you know, the village manager had left. I was speaking with Maria, the acting village manager at that time, and this was a group of residents that got together to create a list of the highest traveled and largest rights-of-way that works of art could be located. The list was created and sent to Pam for their information. So as I understood it, I was informed there wasn't any written recommendation other than, hey, these are our widest rights-of-way or the most traveled rights-of-way. So there's an exception under the Sunshine Law for what's called a fact-finding committee. So I looked at that as a fact-finding committee. It appeared to be a fact-finding committee. based on what I was told. So in that case, it's an exemption to the sunshine law. Again, I don't have firsthand knowledge of it, but this is the best that I found. Now, the professional police group was very interesting because of it was hard to tell, and again, the then village manager who was participatory in that had already left, and it appears that there was either individual ranking or a group ranking which was going to come for a recommendation. Okay, so they were an advisory board, and the law is very clear, and there's an AGO opinion that if there's just 4 non-elected people, that the chief of police asked for input on it actually was, in that case, it was the city manager asked for input on the police chief. They're serving as an advisory board to that individual that had the right to hire him, because the village manager hires police chiefs just like here. And so they found that in another city to be a violation. What occurred here was they may have done it individually, which is just as my recommendation and not the board, in which case it's not a committee, it's just individuals, which individuals came up to you about the manager, as you told me. So that would not be a violation. If, in fact, they made a vote, and I was unable to find this, one way or the other, then they were really about to give their advice, but because the search for the police chief stopped at that time, that recommendation never moved forward. And on that one, I actually talked to, that was how close it is, the Attorney General's office. There's a wonderful lady there named Pat Gleason. She's been there 30 some odd years. And what's amazing is you learn that there's a lot of these boards, and she told me out there, that are out there unintentionally, because with sunshine law, in this type of level, you don't expect it, that are out there. In fact, there was a group here that was going to help us, but they were not going to notice their meeting, so we said, well, we can't use you, because we just had a conversation with Ms. Gleason. So the good news is, on those 3 events, the first one had no sunshine implications, the second one was fact-finding, and the third one was never moved forward to be a sunshine violation. So, but again, it's great, it's for everybody, and a lot of you are on board, just to remember, it's not something that's natural, and you'll be very careful as we move forward. So,
thank you very much.
thank you. And the only other item I have, very briefly, is, we've had a year of this, as you all know, where we're having a meeting with the City of Miami for water, and either one of their managers or attorneys is in process of transition, or we've been in transition. So we had a meeting scheduled, just as we got into transition 3 weeks ago. We're going to schedule another one in June. Trying to get that meeting scheduled.
Please, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, boards and committee reports. Foundation, anybody here from the Foundation? Parks and Parkway? Public Art, I think already came earlier. So none? Okay. Commissioner comments? I just want to make a comment on coming up. I know there's we have kind of 2 events going on Saturday, May 6th. If you will go to the website, and I believe the time is 9 to 12, is going to be for code. It's going to be processes of code, and what you prioritize as a community for code. So that's going to be May 6th. There'll be several email blasts just reminding people. And then in the afternoon, there's going to be 2 times certain. Do you have that information in front of you? I believe it's driveways first and then landscape ordinance. I believe that's correct. In the afternoon, and all that's on the webpage, and we'll make sure that information is emailed out to you. I strongly encourage as many people who can come to this as possible. There are a lot of feedback. I'm sure the manager can talk about that on code, what people want to see, what they don't want to see, what people get upset about getting violations for. And really, this should be a community decision about what you want to see and how you want to see code move forward. We did so on the police. We had a very successful meeting. I'm hoping we'll have one as well. I know it's a long day, so my suggestion is, especially those of you who want to go to the Pam Art thing in the afternoon, if you can come to the morning meeting, I'm sure we can accommodate any comments you have on driveway ordinances and landscape at that time if we need to, but we'll do a much more lengthy discussion. I'm also going to ask that we reach out to the 62 homeowners that are going to have the driveway ordinance and make sure they are also informed, as they may have some comments on that as well. So that's just the only closing comments I want to make. And the last one's the landscape in the afternoon, and that's for new builds, as well as how it might impact somebody who does significant work. And so I'm encouraging folks, if you don't know about the ordinance and you want to know more, come and listen. If you want to add your comments about what you'd like to see us do and not do, I really encourage it, and I hope you all will come. Thank you. Any comments from manager? No, okay.
Just a comment, and after reading about Jim Reeder's passing, I did a little bit of research, and not only was he the mayor here, but he also served on a transportation board with the county for 13 years.
Wow.
And last year in October, the CITT board honored him for giving his services to the county and being very involved. And one of the things I remember that former Mayor Reeder, piece of advice he gave me was, do stuff. Just do stuff. You know, come up with a plan, implement it. If it doesn't work, change it. But move, get things done. So I hope, you know, we take his advice, and I'll share the picture that I pulled off the internet of him receiving the award or mention, honor from the CITT board.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Mr. Reeder.
Any other comments?
Yeah. I guess I've got one. I'd like to have the attorney take a look at that landscape ordinance to see how much of it he thinks is actually enforceable, and if any of it is not legal, stuff that we can't do.
You're looking at that at the workshop, though, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather
we're
get
looking
your
at the
input from the
workshop.
workshop.
I think we should wait before we give attorneys time. I'm going to suggest we wait till we get all the comments
what
and
you're
what the
going
intent is,
Okay.
because that may save us a lot of attorney time and dollars. Anybody else?
Just real quick, I just want to once again say how excited I am and looking forward to the to 3 key positions that we've filled: the chief, finance, and the village manager. I think it's a 3 strong people in those positions, and I think it's going to benefit the village for a long time.
Thank you. Anything?
That's it. I concur.
I think we all do.
Thank you.
Announcements?
You forgot to mention me.
Oh, yes.
I think that's just
You kind of,
understood.
after a while, you know, you just.
It feels like
No.
you've been here so long.
It does.
It really does. I'm not gonna lie.
Sorry. Welcome again.
I'm just teasing. I did want to mention something before the announcements. If you're having difficulties with the emails that we send out, the information emails, if for some reason you're not getting them, I need you to do 2 things. Look into your junk mail and look into your spam mail, and if it's still not in either one, then go back into the website and just put yourself back into the list, because I'm hearing that you're not getting the emails, you're not getting the information that I'm sending out, and my machine is telling me that it's going out. So the only thing I can imagine is getting stuck in your computers in one of those areas. So
I just want to add that it happened to me on all the agendas. So she said, look in your junk box. I said, I didn't put it there, and sure enough, that's where it was. So clearly, maybe we can reach out to IT to see what's going on and see what's happening, perhaps.
I've
with
already gone ahead and reached out to
Thank
them.
you.
And what they've explained to me is, again, it's your own computer. So because it has so many people on the list, it will just grab it and put it into junk. But once you grab it back and move it to your inbox, it will continue coming back to your inbox. Because then
Okay.
it knows, okay, you do want to see these advertisements, these promotions, whatever it is. So that's how it really works. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Now we're going to go into what's happening on Saturday, May 6th. We have our community forum and workshop. It starts at 9 a.m. And the important thing is that it is here at the log cabin. It was originally going to be at the Ed Burke Recreation Center, but it's been moved here to the log cabin starting at 9 o'clock. And the 3 issues, as the mayor has mentioned, will be code compliance, our landscape ordinance, and our driveways. So please join us. We also have on Saturday at May 6th, the PAM Inside Out Spring Community Day, and it will be at the Ed Burke Recreation Center. It will start at 11:30. The bus goes ahead and picks you up at 11:30 and brings you back at 4 o'clock. Now, what I did want to give you was also the email for Amy, which is the chairperson. It is admas@aol.com. admas@aol.com. If you want to go ahead and attend that event, you need to call her because she needs to make the reservations for the bus in advance. The next item is Monday, May 8th, is our code compliance meeting at 7 p.m. On Monday, May 15th, we have Planning and Zoning Board meeting at 6:30 p.m. On Monday, May 29th, we have Village Hall Department, the Village Hall will be closed due to Memorial Day. We get a day off. Looking forward to it. Monday, June 5th is our Planning and Zoning Board meeting at 6:30, and our next commission meeting is scheduled for June 6th at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for sitting so long for such a long meeting. We so appreciate it.